Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Germany once again, and we're going to continue on with this little mini series of German reviews that I've been doing for you over the last few videos. Now for this review we are actually going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. These guys are a very well recognised beer brand in their local area. I guess you could say quite well recognised across Germany as well, and in recent times I've seen their beer spreading a little bit further afield across Europe too, so that's been quite interesting to see. But this beer is yet another style from Germany that I haven't covered all that much of on the channel, and that was the main reason, as I said, why I did this order from Beers of Europe, where I picked up a few different styles that I really wanted to explore a little bit more. But the beer we're going to have a look at today has only featured, or the beer style that we're going to look at today has only featured on the channel maybe 2 or 3 times before, so needless to say I'm very curious to see what this example is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to the city of Dortmund in Nordrhein-Westfalen, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from the Dortmunder Actien Brauerei. So this particular beer goes by the name of D-Pils, or Diet Pils I've also seen it called. It comes in at 4.9% ABV, and from the name I think you can guess what style this one is. A German style Pilsner, of course. But yeah, apparently the D stands for like diet, as in low calorie Pilsner, which I didn't realise when I got this one. I just saw that there was 2 beers from Dortmund, so yeah, I thought this could be quite an interesting one to try as well. So yeah, let's just crack on with this one and see how we get on. A Diet Pilsner from Dortmund, Dortmunder Actien Brauerei in Dortmund over in Germany. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Dortmunder Actien Brauerei before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the German playlist along with many others, and you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well if you are so inclined. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then and tell you a wee bit once again about the Dortmunder Actien Brauerei. So, Dortmunder Actien Brauerei was founded back in 1868 by Dortmund merchants Lorenz Fischer and Heinrich and Friedrich Mauritz, along with master brewer Heinrich Heberts, under the original name of Bierbrauerei Heberts. So the site of the brewery had been purchased the year before in 1867, and a few years later in 1872 the name was changed to Dortmunder Actien Brauerei, which is basically the kind of when you talk about Actien, it's like the Dortmund or Share brewery, if you like, or Dortmund, or the Dortmund Common brewery, if you like. But at the time, there were many breweries in the city, and they followed suit with them in pursuing an export strategy from 1879 onwards. But they went by the name Dortmunder Helles as a style, and this was a bottom fermented lager beer. And by 1885, the production of this brewery exceeded 100,000 hectolitres. But Dortmund was one of the first breweries in Germany to establish their own laboratory, which happened in the year 1893. So in 1894, Heinrich Mauritz died, and so his son Theodor took over as chairman of the company, and they continued to expand, with the output of the brewery reaching 250,000 hectolitres by the year 1913. After the conclusion of the First World War, they expanded despite the number of breweries in the city decreasing from 28 to 8, and they purchased the Tremonia Brauerei, Menninghaus Klosterbrauerei as well, and I think they purchased 1 or 2 others from what I remember too. But in 1933, Alfred Mauritz, the son of Friedrich and cousin to Theodor, became the chairman and under his guidance, the output of the brewery rose again to 800,000 hectolitres, and they had a workforce in the region of 750 people. But he was succeeded by Theodore's son Otto in 1938, but much of the brewery was destroyed during the Allied bombing raids of the Second World War, but it was rebuilt again in the post-war years, and by 1959 they were producing 1 million hectolitres of beer per year. Fast forward to 1972, DAB purchased their local competitor Dortmunder Hansa, and then they moved their production to the historic site on Steiger, Burgholzstraße, and the company headquarters remained in the Rheinische Straße in the traditional brewery district until 1983. But from the late 1980s until mid-1990s, the brewery went through quite significant financial difficulties, and it was saved by the Binding Brauerei from Frankfurt. But in 1996, DAB purchased the trademark and distribution rights of the Kronen Privatbrauerei Dortmund, and by the following year they were producing 4 million hectolitres of beer per year. But later in 2002, the brewery became part of the Radgeberger group from Frankfurt, which is in turn part of the Oetker group, and a few years later the structure of the company was changed from an AG company, which is a stock company, to a limited liability, which in Germany is known as a GmbH, or GmbH as you'll see it. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about the Dortmunder Actien Brauerei. These guys have been around for a really long time. They've expanded a hell of a lot over the years, and they're now part of two bigger umbrella companies, the Radgeberger Group, which is part of the Oetker Group. And I think Oetker is one of the biggest food companies in all of Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, pretty impressive. But yeah, the DAB regular Pilsner and the DAB Export are very well known beers actually. So yeah, probably the most recognisable Dortmunder Helles styles. And when it comes to the Dortmunder Helles, for me, it's usually quite a soft and smooth, kind of light Helles lager type beer. Sometimes they can be a little bit more hoppy. It just depends on exactly what one you have. But yeah, I've not tried too many of this style, but they always tend to be pretty interesting from my experience. But yeah, like I say, that's everything I can tell you about DAB, Dortmunder Actien Brauerei for the moment. If you want to learn a bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So, I understand that just not long after I bought this bottle, DAB did a little bit of, you know, they renewed their branding and stuff like this. So this is probably an older looking bottle than you'll find the beer being now. But you can see the nice little top label there, the DAB symbol, and that is of course on the bottle cap as well. This is a 500ml bottle, as is standard in Germany. I honestly can't remember what I paid for this one through Beers of Europe. It was probably £2 or £3, but again, I love my German beers, so I was just like, you know, why not? But yeah, as I said earlier, it's a 4.9% ABV low calorie Pilsner, which should be quite interesting. This one's 33 calories per 100ml. I think normally they're about 50 or something like that when you're talking about a roughly 5% beer. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and just see how we go. So this should be quite an interesting one. Try and give it a little bit of an aggressive pour so we get a nice head on it. I think that is going to come out quite nicely actually. There we go. Yeah. That looks pretty good, I have to say. There you are. I'm quite pleased with that one, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, anyway, you can see that this beer is poured pretty much exactly as you would expect from a Pilsner, to be honest with you. There's about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. You can see that it's got a lovely kind of head of, you know, kind of foamier bubbles toward the top, kind of bumpier bubbles underneath, and then you've got a really nice kind of thinner sort of foamy character underneath. But in terms of the colour of this beer, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour, which is what you would expect from from a Pilsner, of course. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it too. But when it comes to Pilsners, you don't often have to care about that. But yeah, this one is really very, extremely clear. That's obviously been filtered quite extensively. Yeah, not really a natural hazy character to this one, as you can sometimes get. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look very, very nice, I have to say, but pretty much as you would expect from a Pilsner beer. But remember, the Pilsner as a style originates in the Czech city of Pilsen. At the time, it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was lived in by Germans, ethnic Germans and ethnic Czechs at the time. The Pilsner style was created, I want to say, in the 1840s, if I'm not mistaken, by a Bavarian brewer who was brought to the city and thrown out a few years later because he was a bit of an arsehole, apparently. But yeah, the city of Pilsen created Pilsner Urquell, the first Pilsner, or as it's known in Czech, Plzeňský Prazdroj. Probably butchering that pronunciation. But yeah, this style has spread across the world. It's probably the most popular beer style, actually, in terms of volume of consumption. But yeah, the Czech Pilsners for me always tend to be a little bit more kind of bitter and yeasty and things, whereas the German Pilsners are a little bit more kind of crisp, dry and clear, usually. So there is a bit of a distinction for me between the Czech and German Pilsners, and feel free to talk about that in the comment section below. But in terms of the appearance, this one is pretty much as you would expect from any Pilsner style. So I think we can have a little look at the aroma and see how it gets on. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. But yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this beer is really it's really a very mild aroma. It's almost a little bit soapy. I'm just hoping I rinsed out my glass properly before I made this video. There is a little bit of almost soapiness to it, but I've got a feeling that's that might not be the beer. But yeah, in terms of the aroma of this one, it's not it's not overly pungent at all. Actually, it does smell like a really kind of mass-produced thing. I remember the last beer we had from DLB actually did have a good little bit of aroma to it, but this one just smells like a very kind of light sort of mass-produced thing, to be honest with you. And if it's a low-calorie Pilsner, it's obviously had some kind of treatments or something to it to make it like that, to take some of the sugar out of it. But yeah, the aroma of this one is quite, it really is very, it really is quite nondescript almost. There's only a few little things going on in it. So let's just try and break it down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, but I think we might struggle with this one, to be quite honest. Yeah, but I get the feeling with this one we probably will get more out of the actual flavour of the beer than we will from the aroma. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, then, you do get a little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust. There's a little touch of cracker, but again, it's very difficult to pick that up. Not really any woodiness to this one. The aroma of this beer actually reminds me a little bit of Beck's. If you compare Beck's to, which is an industrial beer, compared to some of the things that you'll get from, say, Munich, the Augustiner Helles, the Paulaner Helles, and all these kind of things, it's just not in the same kind of league, if you like. When you sugar the beer up, though, you do get a little bit more out of it. Yeah, you get a little bit of a kind of sweet, wholemeal brown bready character, a little bit of a white bready sort of thing as well. So as I say, yeah, a bit of bread crust, bit of cracker, teeny bit of woodiness, wholemeal brown bread, white bread. There's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit character to it. There is a little bit of sweetness to this one. So yeah, so the way that goes together is really interesting, I have to say. you do get, the more that I smell of it, you will get a little bit more out of it, but the aroma really doesn't kind of jump out of this one. I think that's definitely fair to say. Yeah, other than that, I really don't think there's very much to say about the malty backbone of this one. It does smell, you know, quite mass-produced. A little bit of sweet kind of caramel in there, a bit of biscuit. It's almost got a little bit of a kind of corny, mazy sort of nose to it. But, you know, I don't think this one, I think it is, yeah, it will have proper, it says it's got hop extracts and stuff in it as well, but not malt extract. I was wondering if it would have a little bit of malt extract just because of the way the sweetness is. But yeah, a bit of breadiness and things like that. Yeah, not too much to report in that sense. In terms of the green component then with this one, it's kind of as you'd expect from the German noble hops. There's a little touch of earthiness in there, there's a little bit of herbal character, wee bit of floral aromaticity, but for me the mainstay of the green component in this beer is a little bit of a, it has a little touch of a kind of you know, wetter, more wet, freshly cut grass type aroma to it. But the herbal character pushes out of the aroma a little bit more the kind of further you go into the aroma, I would say, as well. The more you kind of linger on it. But yeah, I think that's all we really need to say about the green component of this one, to be honest with you. So yeah, in terms of the fruitiness, again, there's not too much to say with this beer. You've got a little touch of kind of sultana, you know, dry white green grapey notes, a little bit of oily pear, stuff like that. Yeah, a little bit of a peary kind of note to it, a little touch of gooseberry, fresh green apple, something like that. Yeah, the way the beer goes together in that sense, I think, is really quite interesting. So, yeah, aroma-wise, I find that aroma-wise, I find that one really quite interesting. It's yeah, I expected something compared to the DAB that I had before last time. Had quite a little bit of aroma to it, and it was one of these ones that kind of showed you why the Germans are, you know, masters of the big brew, the quality control. You still get the good flavours out of them. This one, just, it reminds me, it's like going from, say, like Paulaner to Beck's or something like that. This, for me, that seems the kind of step that you would have between this one and the other DAB that we had before. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But this one is a really quite bland aroma, to be honest with you. Not as good as the other one that we've had, I would say. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer then and see what it's all about. So this one is the Day Pils, or Diet Pils as I've also seen it called, a 4.9% Pilsner beer from the Dortmunder Actien Brauerei in Dortmund, Nordrhein-Westfalen in Germany. Let's get stuck in. Slange, Skål, cheers, Prost. Yeah, for me, it's interesting. It is meant to be a Pilsner, you know. For me, the thing about a Pilsner is it should always be a little bit kind of bitter and, you know, kind of crisp on the back end. This one is, you know, kind of smooth, wet and sort of sweet, actually. But I have heard, you know, this one, yeah, I do wonder, it really isn't like a Pilsner in a conventional sense. It could be a little bit more like some of the softer examples of the Dortmunder Helles, but a Dortmunder Pils. I'm not 100% sure about this one. But yeah, this is a very kind of soft and wet and a wet kind of beer. The maltiness of it is fairly solid, but the hoppy character that you would expect of a Pilsner isn't quite there in this one for me. It's an unusual beer, this, I have to say that. So, yeah, I'm not sure what we should. I'm not sure what we should say to this one. To be honest with you, it's kind of interesting. It does get sweeter and sweeter the further into the aftertaste that you go, but it's not like an overwhelming sweetness. It's like a bready sort of sweetness that you get out of this one. But yeah, let's try and break this beer down and just describe the flavour a little bit more in depth for you. But yeah, interesting stuff. But I will say straight away, this one isn't as good as the regular DLB Export or the regular Dortmunder Helles. So yeah, let's have a wee look at that middle third of the palate to start off with then. So the backbone of the beer, you have a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust there that lingers. It gets a little bit drier and so on the further into the aftertaste that you go. So that's the backbone of the beer. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness coming out of it. So yeah, little touch of woodiness in there. Maybe this beer doesn't really have a kind of crackery element to it until you get way into the aftertaste. So yeah, a little touch of woodiness in there, a little bit of crackery character, and then yeah, above that you get this wet kind of bready character for sure. So the breadiness that you get in this one is kind of interesting. So above that kind of slight crackery layer that you've got a little bit of this kind of wet. Yeah, you do have a little bit of this kind of wet. Wholemeal brown bready character coming out of this one. So it's a really wet wholemeal brown bready character. Then above that, it almost has a little bit of that kind of cardboardy sort of thing going on with it. So yeah, a little bit of cardboardy, wet wholemeal brown bread. Above that, there's a little bit of a white bready character as well. And yeah, then you start to get some of the sweeter aspects coming out of this beer. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, for me, the sweeter side of this beer is kind of, if you go into the dead centre of your palate, you do get a tiny little bit of a kind of sweet caramel there, but it feels a little bit more like a kind of concentrated biscuit, but sitting on top of the white bread, you've got that sweeter caramelly note in there. As you move further out from that, you've got a wee bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, and you get more and more of the kind of crisp biscuity characters coming out of the beer toward the edge of that middle third of your palate. So yeah, the way the beer goes together in that sense is quite interesting. Yeah, so I think that covers the middle third of your palate with this one. As I say, compared to other big produced German beers like you know the Paulaners and stuff like this really is more of an industrial lager. This one, I remember the DLB Export being just of a higher quality than this one. To be honest with you, the bready I mean, it doesn't have that kind of wet bready sort of thing to it. The other one, it has a more kind of crisp, smooth bready character. I think just the ingredients just seem like it's higher quality in that one. But with it being a Diet Pils, they're probably using different malts and things like that, and less malt probably to give you that too. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate. Let's go on to the back third of your palate then. The border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there. There's a wee bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bread in the base and a bit of white bread on top of that. But as I often say, on the back third of the palate, you are going to get very similar flavours to what you do in the middle third of your palate. They're just going to come out at different intensities. And yeah, the way that goes together is interesting. yeah, so on the the back third of your palate, then you can feel the bread crusty character. The bread crusty character has a little bit more kind of dryness and things like that. I would say above that you get the kind of crackery character as well. Then you've got that wet brown bready character there, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy than a bit of a wet white bready character sitting above that. And some of the kind of drier biscuity notes just creep over the top of that, and that forms the top, the top of the malty side of things on the back third of the palate. Above everything else, you do start to get a little bit of a kind of yeasty character out of the beer. So yeah, for me the yeasty side of this one isn't too prominent when you think about the overall makeup of the flavour of the beer. I mean, there is a little bit of a sort of more dense wet brown bready character wrapped in a kind of honeycomb or something like that, but there's not too much to report on the malty and other than that on the yeasty side of things. But definitely back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller, and as you move into the middle third of your palate it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah. But yeah, the way that goes together is quite interesting. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you do have a little touch of earthiness in there, but as you move further forward, it gives you a wee bit of herbal character, and then as you move toward the front corners of your tongue, it's a little bit more sort of floral, I would say. But round the front curve of the tongue, lighter and grassy, but the green component overall, for me, is really quite wet, I would say. Yeah, and I wonder if that's the fact. It does say it uses hop extract in this one. I wonder if the wetness is because of that. It's maybe not, you know, full hops this one. But yeah, in terms of the front third of your palate, I think we said all we need to about the green component. Border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. Again, it's that wet brown bready character underneath, and like a wetter white bready character sitting above it. But the base of that front third of your palate is more, yeah, you get the bread crust, a bit of cracker, the brown bread and the white bread, but then above that, lovely little kind of oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. Yeah. So for me, the fruity side of things in this beer is quite nondescript again. I mean, there's a little bit, for me it's got a little touch of a lemony limey character to it, maybe a very slight touch of pear. Yeah, at the back of that front of your palate is maybe a little bit more pear, but then as you move further forward it has a wee bit more of a kind of limey note coming out of it, and it's quite a dry limey character in a sense. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind with this one. This is a really quite it's a really quite interesting beer in that sense. I've never had one of these low calorie light beers, as I guess it would be, but I have to say I'm not a great fan. This one compared to the regular DLB, it's night and day. This really feels like a mass produced beer, whereas the other one had the typical kind of high standard of German brewing, if you like. This feels like, for example, the other DLB felt as if it was, kind of a good quality beer, but this one feels as if it's a little bit more like kind of Beck's or one of the industrial beers. I would say that about it, to be honest with you. But again, when it's a day at Pils, you do wonder if it's been treated in some way, I think, to give you the lower calorie count and all this sort of thing. So I'd be curious to know how they actually produced this one, to be honest with you. But they say they do it using the original Pilsner method, but it is, if we think about the Pilsner as a style, this beer needs a bit more bitterness and crispness to it to really stand out as a Pilsner. For me, it really is quite wet and malty in a sense. But yeah, I think we can round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, mouthfeel of this one, it is kind of in the mid-range of light-bodied. The carbonation is quite crisp in this one, but the whole beer is quite wet at the same time. It's got a little bit of an oily slickness to it as well. I would also say that. In terms of the IBUs in this beer, I would say like 25-ish. I would say about 25-ish IBUs. The malty side of things, a little bit of kind of dryness underneath, a bit of smoothness in the middle, and a little bit of sweetness on top. Then you've got that nice kind of oily, sweet character coming out of the beer too. So yeah, I really like how the way this one goes together, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. I think this is really quite nice. So in that, I think it's quite nice in the drinkability sense, but it does feel, for an industrial lager, yeah, I should say that more in context, for an industrial lager, it's fairly decent, but compared to the other DLB, the regular one, it's just not there. I think that's a fair way to describe this one. So yeah, as an industrial lager, it's fairly decent. It's pretty decent actually, but it's not on the same level as the other DLB. I don't know why I said it gets a big thumbs up for me. Brain's just no working, guys. But yeah, compared to the regular DLB, this one's not a patch on it. This is like Beck's, the other one kind of is up there with the better German mass-produced lagers. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the D-Pils, or Diet Pils as I've also seen it called, a 4.9% low-calorie light Pilsner beer from Dortmunder Actien Brauerei in Dortmund in Germany. Yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from DLB as well, and we will see about returning to these guys at some point in the future. I need to have a look at some of the other Dortmund beers actually, so we'll keep our eyes open for those. But thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out DLB's social media, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.